Let's go over to Rand. Rand Paul is talking about rejecting Trump's tax bill, possibly rejecting Trump's tax bill. Let's see what he got to say.
And we go now to Republican Senator Rand Paul, who joins us from Lexington, Kentucky this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Margaret.
You just heard the Treasury Secretary say a number of things, dismiss the potential price increases that could come from the tariffs when it comes to retailers. He also played down the cost of this tax and border bill that just passed through the House. Do you agree with his math?
Well, the math doesn't really add up. One of the things this big and beautiful bill is it's a vehicle for increasing spending for the military and for the border. It's about $320 billion in new spending. To put that in perspective, that's more than all the DOGE cuts that we found so far. So the increase in spending put into this bill exceeds the DOGE cuts. When you look just at the border wall, they have $46.5 billion for the border wall. Well, their current estimate from the CBP is $6.5 million per mile. So if you did 1,000 miles, that's $6.5 billion, but they have $46 billion. So they've inflated the cost of the wall eightfold. So there's a lot of new spending that has to be counteracted. But essentially, this is a bill by the military industrial complex advocates who are padding the military budget. There's going to be a lot of extra money. Look, the president has essentially stopped the border flow without new money and without any new legislation. So I think they're asking for too much money. And in the end, the way you add it up to see if it actually is going to save money or add money is how much debt are they going to borrow? $5 trillion over 2 years. Enormous amount.
Right. That was the number that the.
I like Rand. Rand seems like one of the very few politicians from all of the things that I've observed and I've reviewed different things that he said before. Rand seems like one of the most realistic people, conservatives, that you can think of. And I agree with him. Again, I don't think that you need that much money for the border bill or for the border walls. I'm not even sure. All right, so here's a question that I got. I know it's going to be a controversial question, and don't feel no type of way about it. Let's just have the conversation. All right? Do we need to spend that much money on the border wall? Honestly, remove your bias. Don't worry about what everybody gonna think about you inside of the chat. Be open to the conversation. Do we need to spend that amount of money on a border wall? Marcus says Rand is a rhino. So you think he's a Republican in name only? I don't think that he's a Republican in name only. There's nothing that he said that actually doesn't make sense. If we've already stopped, for the most part, the flow of migrants into the United States of America, why do we need to spend an egregious amount in order to continue to build a border wall? I believe that we should build a border wall. I just don't agree that it should cost that much. Everybody is saying no. Everybody is saying, Mika is saying yes and no. I'm a fan for making sure that we secure our border because that is the way in which a lot of drugs and all of these things, illegal migrants, trafficking, it all happens at the border. The problem is that I just don't believe that we should have to spend that much money as a result of it. I don't want to borrow no more money.
The secretary was quibbling over. The president has taken note of some of your skepticism, and he did tweet yesterday saying that if you, Rand Paul, vote against his massive border and tax bill, the people of Kentucky will never forgive you. Do you consider that a threat? And do you know if you have 3 other Republicans who will join you to block it from passage?
I had a very good conversation with the president this week about tariffs. He did most of the talking, and we don't agree exactly on the outcome. But when I come home to Kentucky, I talk to the Farm Bureau, which is opposed to the tariffs. I talk to the bourbon industry, which is opposed to the tariffs. I talk to the cargo companies, UPS, DHL, all of their pilots are opposed to it. I talk to the hardwood floor people. I talk to the people selling houses, building houses. I have no organized business interest in Kentucky for the tariffs. So I think it's worth the discussion, and it's worth people remembering that the Republicans used to be for lower taxes. Tariffs are a tax. So if you raise taxes on the private sector, that's not good for the private sector.
I disagree with Rand on that. See, you can agree and disagree. You can like the person. agree with them on one issue, and then you can dislike the person and disagree with them on another issue. The thing that I disagree with him about is the fact that he's saying that tariffs are a tax on the people. A tariff is not a tax on the people. A tax on the people is a tax on the people. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, but the cost will go up more. No, it means that we need to change the way we spend our money. We need to change who we support. We shouldn't have mortgaged our future in order to get to this point in the first place. That's what it means. A tariff gives Trump more negotiating power to allow for him to make sure that he negotiates better trade deals. So it was one point at time in which most of what was happening in the United States of America was paid by tariffs. It was not paid by taxpayers. Okay? It was not paid by taxpayers. It was paid by tariffs. We shouldn't be taxed the way that we are taxed because we never really see taxes go down. We have to make sure that we tax other people. Let's continue.
We hear from other senators who also get complaints from their people in their districts, but they're falling in line. Do you have 3 other Republicans who will stand with you to block this bill?
I think there are 4 of us at this point, and I would be very surprised if the bill at least is not modified in a good direction. Look, I want to vote for it. I'm for the tax cuts. I've voted for the tax cuts before. I want the tax cuts to be permanent. But at the same time, I don't want to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. So I've told him if you take the debt ceiling off the bill, in all likelihood, I can vote for what the agreement is on the rest of the bill, and it doesn't have to be perfect to my liking, but I can't be. If I vote for the $5 trillion debt, who's left in Washington that cares about the debt? We will have lost. But the GOP will own the debt once they vote for this.
But
we have to make sure that we get our budget balanced. Again, if we only if we increase the deficit for 1 year by like $1 or $2 trillion, that's one thing. But doing it every single year it's just unsustainable. It's unsustainable.
The leader, as you know, is sort of in a tight spot here. He needs a vehicle to raise that debt ceiling. Otherwise, you had to turn to Democrats to get that done. What was the White House response when you asked that to the president?
Well, historically, the debt ceiling's always gone up and will always go up, and I'm not proposing that it doesn't. But the people who should vote for it are the people who vote for the spending. Historically, all the Democrats vote for raising the debt ceiling, and about 15 big government Republicans vote for it. This will be the first time it's voted on just by Republicans. This will be the first time that Republicans own the debt. They already own the spending. In March, we continued, not me, but most Republicans voted to continue the Biden spending levels. So you remember the campaign, everybody's talking about Bidenomics and Biden inflation and Biden spending levels. Well, the Republicans all voted to keep the Biden spending levels, and that's why the deficit this year is going to be $2.2 trillion this year.
So you think this is bad politics for Republicans? Some of your Republican colleagues like Josh Hawley are saying that changes to Medicaid are bad politics for America's working people and for your party.
I think it was a bad strategy. I think the tax cuts are good for the economy. When we passed the tax cuts in 2017, the economy grew like gangbusters. We had lowest unemployment historically. It was the great achievement of Trump's first administration. They should have been satisfied by just doing the tax part of this and not getting involved into the debt part of it.
The last time you were with us in March, you talked about conversations you had with Elon Musk. As you know, he's just left his work with the administration. You had proposed a rescission request, a clawback of about $500 billion from money Congress had already signed off on. We know now that the White House is going to ask Congress this week for some rescissions. Sounds like it's just $9.4 billion, and it's PBS, it's NPR, and it's foreign aid. Is this really the best strategy? And do you think 51 Republican senators are on board with it?
First of all, I will vote for spending cuts. The more the better. This is very, very small. To put it in perspective, if the deficit this year is $2.2 trillion, if you cut $9 billion, the deficit's going to be $2.191 trillion. It really doesn't materially change the course of the country. We should do it by all means, and it is the low-hanging fruit. This is the money that was pointed out that was being spent for sex change operations in Guatemala, trans opera in Colombia, all this crazy spending. Yes, it should be cut.
Sesame Street.
But I had an amendment about a month. Excuse me?
It's Sesame Street. It's PBS and NPR.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, you're right. We'll see if there's the votes to cut it. I don't think we necessarily need government programming anymore. We have so many choices on the internet and so many choices on television. But my preference has always been in the past to cut a little bit of everything rather than cut a lot of something. So what I've done in the past is propose a penny plan budget where we cut a certain percentage of everything, but it includes entitlements or it doesn't really work. Once you exclude the entitlements, there isn't enough money to cut. So you can never achieve balance by not looking at the entitlements.
The budget director on another program this morning said they may not need to use this rescission, this clawback, because the White House has other tools. Do you think they need to go through Congress? Is this overstepping?
Well, they absolutely have to use the rescission, and it is done by simple majority, by Republicans only. There is no filibuster of it, so it's a great tool to cut spending. If they don't use it, it'll be a huge wasted opportunity. But I will tell you, they tried in the first Trump administration. It wasn't their fault. They sent a tiny one, $16 billion, and it failed because 2 Republicans went the other way. So we'll see what happens on this. But if we can't even cut welfare that we're giving to other countries, if we can't cut foreign aid, welfare, I feel bad for the country. You know, interest rates are rising. We're having trouble selling our debt. We've got a lot of problems.
Yeah, we got to make sure that we reduce the deficit 100%. I'm 100% in support of that. We got to have a balanced budget. At some point, we got to have a surplus, even if we don't necessarily agree. And I think that the foundations of how the nation is operating today started during the Bush and the Clinton administration, as far as them selling off the United States of America. But I could sit here and whine and I can complain about it as much as I want to. It doesn't change the circumstances. It doesn't change anything. We still have to solve for the problems, and we still got to tackle it. We could sit there and complain about it every single day. Oh, man, is this fault? Oh, man, they shipped jobs. Oh, man, they did all of this stuff. But it doesn't change what we are facing right now. And we have to, at some point in the very near future, we have to balance the budget.